Dual Mephistos, the Lord of Hatred, commonly referred to as Mephisto, is one of the three prime evils. Like all the great evils, Mephisto was born from one of the 7 heads of the great dragon Tahamet. His realm in the burning hells was the realm of hatred, and he watched with joy as its denizens schemed and warred against each other. He, Diablo, and Baal were the 3 prime evils, and from the outset warred against each other to maintain dominion and rule over the legions of the burning hells. He acted as the mentor of Belial. As with all demonkind, Mephisto warred against the high heavens in the eternal conflict. However, he preferred to operate from the shadows rather than lead an army in the open. One battle bore angels right into the heart of his lair, making an attack against Mephisto himself. One of the angels managed to draw blood, causing it to spill onto the ground. This led to the creation of the magma demons, who rose up to defend their master and drove the angels back. Mephisto and his brothers almost achieved victory against the high heavens at the 5th battle of the Diamond Gates. However, confident of victory, the primes began arguing over who would get the spoils of war, and thus their attack failed. The Sin War. Cursed am I to lead an army of the blind. They do not perceive that the angels are fleeing this realm, and the ones they find are merely trapped or lost. A great change is upon us. Withdraw from the fields, my brothers. Some battles can only be won with words. Mephisto, upon seeing the signs of the Worldstone's disappearance. While leading his forces on the battlefields of Pandemonium, Mephisto noticed that the angels were withdrawing. He ordered his forces to withdraw so he could analyze the situation. Baal, losing patience, stormed the Pandemonium fortress and discovered that the Worldstone was missing. Thus, the eternal conflict ground to a halt. Eventually, tales of demons summoned into a new realm and the new people reached the ears of the prime evils. They sensed within humanity the dormant powers of their Nephilim forefathers, and thus resolved to corrupt humanity into a weapon to use against the high heavens. So it was that Mephisto and his brothers cast their influence into mortal minds, spreading their ideas across Sanctuary. Their whispers led to the creation of the Triune, where each prime evil took on the role of a seemingly compassionate deity. Mephisto took on the persona of Mephis, spirit of love. Their actions were countered by the rogue angel Inarius, who formed the Cathedral of Light to counter their influence. And thus began the Sin War, as the prime evils and Inarius secretly vied for influence over humanity. The Sin War ended with a final battle between the forces of Heaven, Hell, and the Edrium. The Edrium were like a neutral force that kind of hated everybody. After which Mephisto met with the Angiris Council. Mephisto offered to let Sanctuary be untouched by either angel or demon to see what the children may yet become on their own, for good or for ill. It was agreed that Mephisto cast his mark on the ruins of the Cathedral of Light to seal the flux between worlds, and in return, Mephisto was given Inarius. It was agreed that humanity be allowed to find its own path, free of the interference from angels and demons. The Dark Exile. Follow my orders, Asmodan, as you did in ages immemorial. You will lead us only to failure, brother. I make my own way. Mephisto and Asmodan. In the millennia following the Sin War, the lesser evils grew discontent, believing that the prime evils had forsaken the eternal conflict to focus on humanity. The 4 lesser evils rose up against the primes, and despite the efforts of Mephisto and his brothers, they were cast out of hell into the mortal realm, in what would become known as the Dark Exile. The banishment of the prime evils from hell to the mortal plane also left them incorporeal. In order to acquire physical form, they required a body for their spirit to possess. Over time, their demonic presence twisted the victim's human flesh into grotesque simulacrums of their physical form. In response to the most evil of beings walking Sanctuary, the Archangel Tyrael rallied several of the disparate mage clans into an alliance known as the Horadrim and gave them the Soulstones to bide the tree forever. And through this series of events had been masterminded by the prime evils, Through the Soulstones, they would corrupt the Worldstone itself, and with it, all of humanity. A new army to be used against the forces of heaven. At some point during the exile, Mephisto was present in Aranok. He bound the spirits of demons into the mummies that slept beneath the sands at the Lut Gohlin, hordes of undead emerging to bring woe to the living. Mephisto was the first of the three to be captured. During their hunt for him, the Horadrim led an army against his fortress of bone, but the common soldier found himself hard-pressed to advance against the seemingly endless tide of undead that he summoned and were nearly overwhelmed. Eventually, Mephisto was found in or around one of the urban centers of Kyrgyzstan. The fight cost many innocent lives, but eventually the Horadrim succeeded in defeating the Lord of Hatred and imprisoning his essence inside the Soulstone. It was then entrusted to the Zakarum priest and kept sealed in the Guardian Tower of the Temple of Light in the Tramvikal. The corruption of the Zakarum. The skies shall rain fire, and the seas will become as blood. The righteous shall fall before the wicked, and all of creation shall tremble before the burning standards of hell. Mephisto. Over the generations, Mephisto was able to corrupt the High Council of the Zakarum, and the body became a mockery of its former glory. The first signs of this were as early as the 11th century. 2 centuries after this, Mephisto cemented his control over the church. He had been able to overcome the Soulstone enough to have the Zakarum priests to work spells to shatter the Soulstone into 7 shards, breaking the mystic seal and freeing him. The Kwehegan Kalim proved immune to his corruption, so Mephisto had the priesthood slay and dismember him. The priest Sankekur became the new Kwehegan and consequently Mephisto's embodiment on the mortal plane. The corrupted High Council fashioned the compelling orb to control the rest of the Zakarum faithful and used their powers to conceal the lair of their master. Years passed and eventually Lazarus was sent west to reawaken Diablo. Thus Diablo arrived in the form of the Dark Wanderer with Baal at his side. The two entered the temple's innermost chambers where Mephisto's Soulstone was kept and released him. Mephisto possessed Sankekur, already under Mephisto's control, whose body was twisted to represent Mephisto's hideous visage. After nearly 3 centuries, the prime evils were united. Within the chamber, the three devised a final stratagem to reclaim the burning hells and claim vengeance upon those who overthrew them, along with enslaving humanity to their will. Diablo, assuming his true form, crossed through the infernal gate into hell to rally those still loyal to the three. Baal began his journey north to corrupt the Worldstone, while Mephisto remained behind, bent on destroying anything that could oppose their plan. It wasn't long before a group of mortal heroes arrived intent on doing such a thing. In the fevered combat that followed, Mephisto worked diligently to turn his foes' own anger and distrust against them. But despite the long hunt and many hours of battle, the heroes defeated Mephisto and imprisoned his essence within his Soulstone. The artifact was later destroyed at the Hellforge, which would, in theory, cast his spirit into some unseen netherworld. Even after death, Sankekur's corpse still seeped corruption from Mephisto's deep-rooted demonic influence, and it was sealed in a chamber at Hawezar by one of the heroes who defeated him. The Black Soulstone. When I found the Lord of Hatred's soul, it fought back with a rage I had not anticipated. More than once it seized control of my mind, and if my ritual did not have the safeguards built into it, it would have been lost. Nevertheless, I completed my task. Adria. Mephisto's essence ended up in the Black Soulstone as per the machinations of Adria. He was the 4th and final great evil to be marked by her in her preparations for Diablo's return. When she found his soul, Mephisto fought back with rage that she had not anticipated. More than once she was able to take control of the witch's mind, and if not for the safeguards Adria had employed in the ritual, she would have been lost. Nevertheless, she succeeded in marking his essence. Mephisto was briefly merged with Diablo as a single primeval, but Diablo was defeated by a new hero and the great evils were drawn back into the Black Soulstone, their souls screaming for release. Because of Mattel, the stone was destroyed and Diablo was freed, still containing Mephisto's essence and those of the other evils. Eventually, however, Mephisto's spirit was able to break free from Diablo, just as all the other evils. While Mephisto returned to the burning hells, a sliver of his essence remained in Sanctuary. The sliver took the form of the bloodied wolf, the Great Enmity. Mephisto's demonic influence bubbled up from hell, causing the formation of the Fields of Hatred, corrupted land that seeped deep hatred into the hearts of men, causing them to turn against each other. Such intense evil permeates those lands that it even causes the eruption of crystallized demonic energy made of hatred itself. At some point, Lilith was summoned into Sanctuary by a former Horadrim, Elias. This brought a resurgence to the cult of the Triune, who now worshipped her. Meanwhile, Mephisto's essence remained scattered in hell. As the bloodied wolf, he began following the progress of a wanderer, occasionally protecting them from unseen dangers unknown to them, as Mephisto saw that they had the strength to oppose Lilith. Finally, his essence began to reform within his temple in the realm of hatred. Unfortunately for him, Lilith sensed this and made efforts to reach him before he fully reforms, and then devoured him to take his essence. According to Mephisto himself, Elias's meddling with the power at the Temple of the Primes caused imbalance to the realms of hell. The visions of Secheron and his deceased inhabitants ended up in his realm, while in truth they belonged in Baal's dominion, not his. When the Wanderer came to a Triune shrine dedicated to him to request his blessings to use against Lilith, the bloodied wolf revealed himself to them and told them his true identity. He agreed to grant them the blessing if they put the renegade souls to rest. From there he continued to help them. Now, without the need to hide himself, he came to an agreement with them. He would lead them to his cathedral where his essence gathered ahead of Lilith. He would help them subdue Lilith after they freed him, after which she would be sealed in a shard of the World Stone, which had been fashioned into a Soul Stone. He would keep the Soul Stone to make sure she didn't return. After that, he would return them to Sanctuary and seal the gates of hell. Resealed. Your lives and those of all humanity depends on what you do next. Choose wisely. Mephisto to Neirel. Unfortunately, when the time arrived, the Wanderer was accompanied by Neirel, who had the Soul Stone in her possession. She recognized the runes on the wolf's head as that of Mephisto and was aghast when she was told its true identity. She argued that between Lilith and Mephisto, he was a greater threat. The Wanderer decided to leave the final decision to her. Within his temple, Mephisto's essence could be seen as a giant floating sphere of blood, within which a shade of his visage could be glimpsed. Mephisto tried to persuade her again to stick to the agreed plan, but she refused and stabbed his essence into the new Soul Stone, thereby sealing him again. In the process, Neirel was also tainted by his essence. After Lilith was defeated, Neirel traveled away, promising to find a way to put an end to the Primes before she is lost. Possibly unknown to her and unseen to all, Mephisto stalked her in the form of the bloodied wolf, watching as she lost a little bit of herself with each passing day.